It is time once again to shine our community spotlight, and Robert Cochran is the CEO of the nonprofit Yes and Exercise. It deals with trying to create awareness and funds and research and hopefully a cure for Parkinson's disease. And Robert joins us now. Robert, the story how this began for you, it's telling. It came literally right to your doorstep with your dad. If you could explain how it first started and how this suddenly became what is now a lifelong passion to find continuing support and finding eventually a cure for Parkinson's.
You bet. Well, lifelong A's fan here in the Bay, and Dad saw as me becoming a fan throughout the 80s, including, the ups and downs, not so great teams, and then really great teams. He saw how much it meant to me. He wasn't really a big baseball fan, but what it meant to me as an evolving team was kind of a freedom. Me and my best friend, we'd hop on BART and go to A's games, and it just became our life. One summer, we went to 47 games. So really, we were dyed in the wool, as it were. And Dad recognized that I took that passion as far as to go for my undergrad degree for a sports journalism degree, thinking I wanted to be the next, Olbermann and, Patrick type. And he said, well, within that, how'd you like to go to all the ballparks together? Because that was really the gauntlet at the time, right? And it was still meaningful to a lot of people, but it's like, wow. So we said, okay, we're going to set out and start doing this back in like 1990. We'll go to a couple of times, at a time. We went to 4 the first year, including it was the Midwest trip. So we saw Old Tiger, we saw Old Comiskey, we saw Old Milwaukee County, and the one that's still standing, which is Wrigley. And then in 91, we went on another mini trip out to the East Coast, and this time we saw Fenway before the renovation, so it was the real tight seats. And then we saw Vet, the old dome that they had there, the old ring in Philly, and then we saw Old Yankee. And then life got busy. I graduated, he retired, and we said, we'll get to it. And strike happened. That changed my relationship with baseball for a little bit. And, as things started to evolve back, and I think a lot of us, came back to the sport and the A's revisited themselves. Dad gets diagnosed with Parkinson's, 2001. And now it's like, this, we'll get to it, the time thing starts feeling compressed because we don't even know what it means. We knew Michael J. Fox, we knew Muhammad Ali, but what does this mean to have Parkinson's? So, we, at the same time, unfortunately, my mom, within 2 weeks, was diagnosed with stage 4 breast cancer. So we got a double whammy in the family. And from, mom and dad looking at, retirement golden years of just having really looking good, all of a sudden they have serious health concerns. Thankfully, mom is a survivor and still with us today, as is dad. But once she got clear and the good margins, we, turned our attention and said, so Dad, we got to understand what this Parkinson's thing is. And I rewatched Field of Dreams, bawled my eyes out, seeing the father and son thing from that angle. And I called him up and said, Dad, let's go. Let's do this. And he says, how? And I said, I don't know. We'll figure it out. And that's basically what we did. We made our way across the country in 2004. Seeing all 30 major league ballparks in 2 months, 20,000 miles. With the help of the National Parkinson Foundation, they gave us the use of their 501c3 to help, raise in kind. We'd, get donated tickets from certain ball clubs. We get donated food. We'd sell it back to the fans for $25 a head. And, they'd get a good time with us. We'd get to document it for the movie that we made out of it. And it was a great exchange and, cobbled our way across the country. So we thought that was going to be a one-off because everybody in Parkinson's world said, or a lot of people, the idea was there's going to be a cure within 10 years. Sadly, that didn't happen. So in 2014, now I'm a father, Dad's a grandfather, and we're looking at, some changes in him. And we say, let's revisit this. People are asking, how's Dad doing? And as we start to, go on a second journey saying we're going to take the kids along and maybe go to, the 6 ballparks built since 2004, we noticed Dad's having some significant changes and degradations due to Parkinson's. And we have to start facing the truth that, well, number one, there's not going to be a cure probably in his lifetime. And number two, we're going to have to make some adjustments here if we want to live well, make the most out of what we have. And so that began a different kind of exploration. And I began to recognize myself as a care partner, not just a son. And how am I going to help Dad, live his life the best he can? So we made a second movie out of that, got more involved. I became a clinical trial recruiter, understanding more about Parkinson's. I introduced this concept of improvisation to my dad because I've been doing it as an actor and a filmmaker. And, said this philosophy could help you, this yes and idea. And, Basically, it's admitting the truth. Yes, I have Parkinson's, instead of trying to avoid it like a lot of people do, which is understandable. Nobody wants to have it. But by getting that truth, you get to the and, which is your empowerment. The and says, oh, I can do something about this, whether that's exercise, whether that's diet, whether that's socialization, all kinds of things. So out of that, the seed was born for Yes and Exercise. Still a lot of proof about trying to make it happen. And those clinical trials, well, that turned into a PhD program, which I've been engaged in the last 3 years, graduating here in December. And that led to the nonprofit Yes and Exercise, which is now out there, and we're doing online stuff for people with Parkinson's, and it's been really great.
I do want to get to that, and what the website and what the nonprofit opens up for people that have a lot of questions and are looking for information. But because you've been so heavily involved in this, if you could just provide some of those cold facts, the realization of what people are dealing with, people that are diagnosed, and life expectancies, and the challenges that families like yourself have to come face to face with on a daily basis.
It's interesting. What's not told most often is the individual story. And so the way we've framed that to help people get to that place is to use storytelling. And that's one of the programs within Yes and Exercise, to help people take them on a hero's journey. And that's not just the people with Parkinson's, that's the care partner. And really, we're gearing toward the medical wellness staff too. So using classic mythological structure, Joseph Campbell's work, to help people through a program that reframes their understanding of what it means to have Parkinson's, what their opportunities are within it, and how to live their best. Because yes, if you're not taking the proper medication, if you're not engaging, if you're not exercising, the degradation is going to happen a lot faster. So it's something that requires you to really live actively. And the social side really helps. Isolation is a killer. People see themselves go downhill really quickly. It becomes a vicious cycle when they don't get out there. And so that's why it's strange that the disease is taking things away from you. And at the same time, the best way to fight it is to say, I'm going to be out there.
When people see, like you mentioned, Michael J. Fox and Muhammad Ali, they see Michael still living with it and being a successful member of society, and saw that Muhammad eventually passed away. Is that a double-edged sword? Is it a positive that people are getting awareness and learning more about it, but also seeing the negativity and the challenges that are there? How did those type of celebrity, if you will, scenarios help try to get the message and continue to build awareness and help with Yes and Exercise, and say, we understand that, and these are the things we're trying to attack to make the next person's life not have to go through as much as what these have or continue to go through?
Well, the first thing is to face the truth that we're going to go through it, right? I mean, unfortunately, because there is no cure for Parkinson's, it's hard to face that. But there's a human condition in that too that just says we got to face that we're going to die. And this Parkinson's may well accelerate that process. It doesn't mean that you can't live well through it. Now, having the faces of Muhammad Ali and Michael J. Fox in front of us, one thing it does right away is it humanizes and equalizes it. The fact, say, it doesn't matter your status, privilege, background, anything. It can happen to anyone. They really don't know the exact source of why it happens. There's good research that says there are some environmental triggers that point to prevalence. A brilliant book by a couple of doctors, Dr. Blom and Dr. Dorsey, talk about those types of things, ending Parkinson's disease. I highly recommend that. They're trying to get movements out there to basically shut down the prevalence, and then we can talk about finding a cure. So those things help to drive funding, to drive awareness. Yes, having those people involved. And we visited the Michael J. Fox Foundation and found them to be great. In fact, we have a really great opportunity I can't fully lift on yet. We may be doing something very special with them in January. More on that soon. But so those things help tell the story. And that's really what it is. When you're trying to get awareness and you're trying to get funding and you're trying to get people behind it, they have to understand what's the story and why does it matter? What's the human element to this? Because you're not a Parkinson's with person, you're a person with Parkinson's. So we have to know the individual. And by the way, it manifests differently in every person. So you don't have Parkinson's go, yep, I got the same. every person. If you've met one person with Parkinson's, you've met one person with Parkinson's.
Robert Cochran is our guest. He's the CEO of the nonprofit Yes and Exercise, yes, A&D exercise.com. Robert, when they go to the website, you talk about telling the story. What are the stories that are there for people to explore and people to learn about?
So there's two programs underneath the umbrella of Yes and Exercise. I'll start with the storytelling one, which is called Day One, PD Superheroes and PD Parkinson's disease. This refers to that hero's journey I mentioned. And we've run two sessions of clinical trials now. One 27-week trial, another a 12-week trial, where we took people on Zoom and people with Parkinson's and one care partner too, through that hero's journey and had them reframe their narrative about, explore and reframe the narrative, also playing improvisation games to help develop confidence, develop strength of their voice, communication skills, and learn what yes and means and how to apply that to their lives. And the effects have been excellent. And what people will find there, I think there are 22 interviews with the people who've gone through the program. You can listen to their testimonials about what it was like to go through the program. And we'd love to have people do that so that they can say, yeah, I think this is for me too, or I'd like to recommend, someone in my life for this program. That's the kind of thing we want people to know. So that's their number one. The other program is the titular Yes and Exercise, which is an improv program. And strictly, we play games online, and there are some live events that are probably going to be coming, especially to the Bay, maybe as soon as the fall, working with a couple groups. But the online version of it is great because we have people from around the world who get in, and we play these games in, for now, what the forum is called is Jam for Joy. 1 hour. We get together and we play games, and this isn't a performance-based thing. It's really important people understand that. They go, oh, I'm not funny, or I never had a background. This has nothing to do with that. I know if you've seen Whose Line Is It Anyway, wonderful show, and the comedy is great. We tend to laugh a lot, which means playing through our emotions, which means using our bodies in ways that maybe we didn't expect. It means paying attention to our senses in ways we didn't expect, and responding to what is offered, and saying yes and to each other repeatedly, and finding out where we go. We go to weird, funny places. So we have a lot of fun.
Robert, because you've been dealing with this on a very personal basis, I just wonder what has in programs and different settings that you've been a part of putting together. What have you seen in terms of putting, maybe putting a smile on a Parkinson's patient, putting a smile on the family's face, that there is still those strong connections that we simply do not want to let go of?
That's right. You nailed it in a couple ways there, talking about the connection, talking about the smiles, the laughter. People, adults generally, forget to play as we get older. For some reason, we think that's for children only. Well, the great thing is within improvisation is we reestablish that this is childlike, not childish behavior. And it is absolutely our birthright to be creative, to laugh with each other, to respect one another, and just to find ways to say yes and to each other, culturally and societally especially. I mean, we hear it all the time. People are in either a yes but or a no world. So often there's just division. This is all about coming together and finding each other in a positive way. We talk about it as a sandbox where everybody gets to play, and it's equalized, meaning that it doesn't matter if we have a doctor in the room, we have a care partner, we have a person with Parkinson's, whomever. Everybody plays together at the same level, and we get to be within any game an astronaut, a a surfer, a truck driver, or whatever, and we take on these things. Many people just thought, I couldn't believe I would do that. And they then, therefore, discover new pieces of themselves and are transformed to believe there's more of me than maybe even I recognized.
You're going to have an event at the Coliseum in late September, tied in with part of a series against the New York Mets on September 25th, awareness for Parkinson's disease, awareness for Yes and Exercise. You touched on it earlier, a couple of different things. People know my son is named after Dominic DiMaggio. My dad is Joe. I'm Vince. Those are the three brothers. That's why he was named Dominic. My wife and I, we got married. Our honeymoon was at Wrigley Field. Baseball's been a part of our lives. That's how we met each other. So, Howard, you touched on Field of Dreams. I'm the same way. My dad is no longer with us, but those moments certainly are really really powerful. And as a girl dad too, I want the the daughters and the sisters to continue their love of the sport as well. But what does it mean for you, Robert, when baseball again is so tied in for you with your dad, with that closeness that the A's are involved in that for you on September 25th?
It's massive. And let me take just a sidestep to ask you: have you been to the Field of Dreams in Dyersville?
I have not been there yet. I actually lived in Iowa in 1988 when I worked in the minor leagues, but I have not been to Dyersville. It's probably a bucket list thing at some point, but I don't see myself going to Iowa in the dead of winter, and usually I'm busy during the summer. So,
hey, yeah, I was going to say it would have to be something you'd have to and it off of a baseball trip if you had a roadie out there with the A's, a couple hours from Chicago or Detroit or something like that. At any rate, I wanted to highly recommend it because we went during the original Boys of Summer, and then we went back last summer, and we actually got to spend the night in the Field of Dreams house. We did a screening of the third film on the Field of Dreams. We did a home run derby. Dad went up there and shocked the world by hitting the ball. We're like, oh my God, he still got the swing. So all of that is still there, and it leads now, like you said, to this game on September 25th, which is a homecoming for us. I moved back up here at my parents' request about a year ago. Brought my wife and kids up here. We'd been living in Las Vegas where the study's been happening, and so I've been back where I grew up here, which has been great. And now we get to go to this ball game together, and the A's have been phenomenal since I think Dave Cavill and I found this mutual story of going to the ballparks together. He's done nothing but say, what else can I do? What else can I do? They did a screening for the second film at the new Parkway a couple years ago. They allowed me to throw out a first pitch, which went not so great. It's part of one of the.
Were you on the top of the mound?
Yeah, that was one of the mistakes.
And it counts. That's all that matters. You're on top of the mound, then whatever the result was, I'm okay with.
Okay, good. Well, yeah, if you ever want to see it, it's part of one of the films. The redemptive moment came that Dad got to catch a first pitch at a Parkinson's event with Dave Parker in Cincinnati, and he made a remarkable catch. And it's like, okay, Dad did it. And what's happening on September 25th, very excitingly, is my son's going to throw out a first pitch to my dad. So we're going to have this connection. That's just going to be an unbelievable moment. I get choked up even thinking about it, that they're going to have that, because the game of catch is so simple and yet so well metaphorically speaks about the give and take of life. And, obviously it works within the game, and it works with back and forth communication, give and take of any energy and life force that we do with each other. So that's a beautiful thing that's happening on that day.
Robert, why was it important for you to document it as opposed to just simply enjoying it and having just lifelong memories with my dad and maybe some photos along the way? But you took it to another level.
Well, I mean, people who know me would say that's me. That my background would say, too, that I had been a narrative filmmaker for about 10 years up to that point. I had the background in journalism, so was certainly interested in documentaries, but I had a couple of feature films down my time in LA that did okay. And, had really sought that as my path. I had recently done a Stephen King short and got to meet him. We were really kind of hot on those things. And then this came about, and it was more of a lark. It was kind of like, I think I can, so why not? And by the way, this might mean something to people with Parkinson's. We might be able to uplift, the community by showing our journey to understanding, because that's a big part of having Parkinson's is understanding, what does this mean? And we interviewed people in every city with Parkinson's care partners, leaders in the Parkinson's community, so that we got a foundation for ourselves, and have been told over the years that we inspired others to basically take advantage of the time you have. That's the story that comes through, and I'm most proud of, is people see my dad's and my relationship as one they'd like to emulate, and that means the world.
Yes, and eXercise.com. That's the nonprofit website. Robert, there's a place certainly there for people to donate, and it opens up opportunities to continue the quest of awareness and the quest of trying to find a cure. Are there other things that are happening inside Yes and Exercise that people, if are there events that you have, or other ways that they can stay connected with what you're trying to do with those in the Parkinson's community?
You bet. So a couple things. Number one, we have a daily, I don't know exactly what to call it, if it's a blog or a vlog, but the woman who I call my first follower, who's a woman with Parkinson's, who challenged me so hard about what does this improv mean for Parkinson's? Why is this helpful? She's a fellow filmmaker who did a story about her journey through Parkinson's. And we've developed a really fast friendship that has made her my first follower and executive of the Yes and Exercise Festival in Texas. It's our first fundraiser, which will take place in December, and that's where she lives in Austin. And it is a model of basically saying we're going to put on what we've been doing, show people the value of it, play, and hopefully have a great big show about it, and then therefore give people the opportunity to say, yes, and we want more of this. It's based on another nonprofit that has been good to us and opened the model for us called Parkinson Voice Project. They do voice therapy, which is very important for people with Parkinson's. So, that what they gave us as much as anything was this pay it forward model. And that's why we don't charge for classes. We tell people, look, come in, get the value, understand it. If you like it, you're going to donate something and or get more people in or help us to find, whatever we need to grow this program. It's very new. We just opened up the nonprofit 2 months ago and people have responded. So we're looking to do much bigger things to let people know and really launch this thing. And I sure appreciate the time to let fellow A's fans know about this. So if they want to get behind it as we build the program in place here in the Bay Area to say, how can we expand it? How can we yes and it?
Yeah. Robert, you acknowledge the reality that maybe there isn't going to be a cure in your dad's lifetime. Yeah. But with all that you have learned and continue to work toward with the goal of finding a cure, what encourages you in the fight on a day-by-day basis? What do you see happening either in the near future or hopefully in the not-too-distant future that gives you optimism for those that are dealing with this awful disease?
Well, one thing that I'm encouraged by is seeing more, and this is something I push for now as a burgeoning scientist, more creativity in science. If we're going to find a cure, we're going to have to be creative in doing that. And, that's going to mean knowing how to be creative. And some people really think it's binary, that they're either creative or not. And I'm a absolute advocate of saying everyone is creative. It is our birthright. Let's develop that creativity and that mindset so we can approach this problem creatively and come up with whatever solution we do from the most bizarre angle. Who cares, right? In the meantime, knowing that's happening and creativity is growing, and I'm going to do my part to light the fire under the scientists' feet to work that way, is to let people know, let's control what we can and let go of what we can't. None of us I am not that type of scientist who is going to find a cure that way, right? I'm going to help inspire others to do so. I can inspire people to live their best in the meantime, which, by the way, one of those people who I help inspire to live their best, that person might be the one who finds the cure. So it's feeding the foundation so that the picture is set correctly. Instead of funneling everything into doing things the same way repeatedly, let's creatively approach this. Scientifically responsible, of course. We follow our patterns and paths, yes, and we look at things creatively, open ourselves up to transformation and discovery. That's the path to finding a cure, I think.
It's so enlightening that the bond between a father and a son, even in the most difficult of times, still moves forward, and it's intertwined with our great love for baseball. So, Robert, we wish you all the best. Yes and Exercise, yes and exercise.com. That's the nonprofit. That's the website. As they continue to build awareness and push toward a cure for Parkinson's disease. September 25th, the A's and the Mets, Buck Showalter's team in town. And it should be a lot of fun as we have a awareness night that night as well. Robert, wish you all the best. Thanks for joining us on this Community Spotlight, and look forward to meeting you at the ballpark.
Look forward to it, Vince. Thank you.